So I wanted to start here. So I have a son. He's 3. He's awesome. This is us on a backpacking trip last summer. I wouldn't have known this before I had a kid, but it turns out like when you have a 3-year-old, that's actually when you start to need to like think about where he's going to go to elementary school, which seems like crazily early, but actually you have to plan that far in advance. And so this year, I've been starting to try to tackle that problem. And like many parents across the country, when I've looked at that landscape, like all the options seem really problematic and kind of crappy to me. And so I wanted to share some of that like frustration with you guys, which I'm sure will be familiar to many of you. So New Mexico, like many states, releases like a report card for all of the schools across the state. This is the report card for the school in my district, where my son would go to school if we just like did the default thing. Yeah, so slightly alarming. Of course, this report card is based primarily on standardized test scores, so you can see where that data comes from. So at this school, where my son would potentially go, only about a third of kids were met expectations, is the terminology that they use for English and reading in 3rd and 5th grade. And the numbers for math are like even way worse. So only like 10% of 3rd graders and 5% of 5th graders like met expectations, like, you know, reach the basic milestones of like competency in math. So I'm not a big proponent of standardized testing and its kind of use to like measure student learning or teacher effectiveness or like the quality of a school. But I have to confess that these numbers give me pause. And for better or for worse, this is essentially the only information that I have about this school. This is the only information about this school that's like made widely available to parents. So this is what I've got to base my decision on. And I'm scared. I'm not sure that this is where I want my son to be having his first experiences of like formal learning in an educational context. So yeah, that's option number 1. Which seems, yeah. So I could send my kid to a private school. This is one like seemingly fantastic option in town. So there's a beautiful, well-regarded Montessori school. I have toured it. It's great. It lives in this kind of old warehouse building that's like full of like amazing, beautiful light. They have a garden and like chickens that they take care of out in the schoolyard. There's an art gallery on the ground floor where they display like student art and also art from artists in the community. Everyone there seems just fantastic, engaged, thoughtful. Just seems like an all-around wonderful place. It costs $14K per year. And I mean, this option to me is also not particularly appealing. It's a beautiful school, but it's also a really isolated, kind of beautiful bastion of privilege. And I'm not sure that that's the experience I want my son to have, like growing up in the world, for all sorts of reasons. I'm not particularly fond of this option either. Like many cities, Albuquerque, where I live, has also a number of charter schools that are available. This is one example. So there's a Montessori charter school, actually not too far from our house, that seems lovely. The challenge, of course, with charter schools is that you have to apply to them through a lottery system, and there's like no guarantee that you will get into kind of the school that you're most interested in attending. So there's a lot of uncertainty involved in whether or not you can attend a charter school. So this seems like a good and potentially viable option, but also very nerve-wracking because it's completely kind of uncertain.